Uh, I have the great fortune to speak to you again. I did speak to the beginning of our combustion meeting, and I regret to tell you that after I sat down, I said, oh, I forgot a few other things to tell you all. So I'm lucky to have the opportunity to tell you right now. I'm reminded of a Nobel Prize winner at UC Berkeley. His name was Yuan Lee. And Yuan came to Berkeley as a graduate student in about 1970, maybe 65, from Taiwan. And he excelled, did very well. He went on to the University of Chicago as a faculty member and was doing really well in what he did. And Berkeley recognized this, and so they actually brought him back to Berkeley as a faculty member, offered him a position at Berkeley. And then Berkeley, being an urban campus, you can't park a car on it. For me, to park a car at Berkeley is $150 a month. And that is not a parking spot, it is a hunting permit. So it turns out I ride a bicycle to work, and that's the intent of the university, is they don't want any cars. But if you win a Nobel Prize at Berkeley, they give you a parking spot. Okay, so you literally have to have the Nobel Prize to have your own parking space at Berkeley. So when Yuan Lee was awarded, told in the morning that he had a Nobel Prize, the microphone was pushed in his face, and he smiled with delight, and he said, "A parking lot." Okay, but Yuan has this famous quote, and he says that "I came to Berkeley because of the faculty when I was a student, and when I was faculty, I came to Berkeley because of the students." And we've brought you people together in this meeting, and there's two things you're supposed to get out of this. One is we're dealing with the best and most recent combustion, but equally important is each other. And we are bringing you together for you to form your own networks for the rest of your life. And you will meet these people and use these people. Now, I'm stealing a little bit of thunder from my GE colleague, Tony Dean, in that he recently had to preside over a reduction in force at his own company. And economics does this, and it has to happen, and it will happen to all of us, one way or another. And when that happens, you start to draw upon your friends, and you ask, do you know of any opportunities available? We've had a reduction in force where I'm at. And you would be amazed how important your network of friends is and will be. So above all else, I encourage you to exchange cards, business cards, and so on. And I'll say, and now drifting to what I'm supposed to be doing, is talking about, remind me, what's the title of our thing? I forgot. Something to do with the future, where are we going, okay? I would say, one of the questions I'd ask my colleagues that are come up on the panel would be, what did the university experience fail on? And my own answer to that is, in the university, we are graded on our individual performance. But when you join a company, you are part of a team. And you go through a weird transition of you're always trying to be yourself. Like you might wear a flaming shirt with flaming shoes, trying to stand out. Well, a little that's okay, but your first job is to be a team member and help the team accomplish what the company needs to do. And by the way, I tell my students at Berkeley, you have to make more money for the company than they pay you. And in Berkeley, they said, that's exploitive. That's wrong, but of course, it has to be that way, okay? So one thing I would say to my colleagues at Berkeley, and I did say this, that in my education at Berkeley, what was lacking was any sense of economics. I was in chemical engineering, and I'm proud to tell you that now at UC Berkeley, when you graduate, you take 2 classes in business economics of buying and selling chemicals. So, that's progress. And I think all of us need to meet much wider bandwidth. So now with that introduction, I invite my team here for discussions on your career, and I invite you all to be asking my experts here, sort of what should I be looking out for? I mean, most people right here, you've all been in universities most of your life, and I'm sure you're trembling in your knees are shaking, thinking, what is the next step? What's the future like? This is your opportunity to talk to the experts in industry. So first what I'm going to do, yeah, thanks. Do you have any, I'm going to ask each of you to just have an introductory comments and talk about a little bit about your career, but I'm really interested for the point of our audience here, what was the difficult transition, if you remember, from being a university student to becoming part of a company, part of a university, and so on, yeah? So I'll start just this way, okay?
All right, thank you, Bob. And before I start, I've got to compliment you on your outfit and want to know where you buy your clothing, because that's awesome.
In San Francisco, this is easy, okay?
For me, the hardest choice was between industry and academics. I think both are extremely rewarding careers. And for me, it was more a matter of the circumstances I found myself in and the opportunities in front of me than I'll say a deliberate choice. Given I did make the choice to industry, I think the biggest transition was adaptability. It was learning to adapt to what the company needed to be successful while being true to my own goals for my career. And that's kind of what's guided me for my entire career, is both those things. And then the other thing I just add is people are extremely important. I love the comment that Bob made about who, to network, to connect. And I would advise all of you to think about who is your mentor or mentors and to seek people out, especially the combustion community. It's just such a tight worldwide family that helps each other. And I haven't seen that in every field I've been connected to. But this meeting and ones like it are just great examples of the community being a community. So get mentors, get connected. It's very valuable.
Are there any questions on that? I'll take them right. Anybody have? Okay. Professor Maruta?
Okay. I was a child who loves car very much. So playing with, like this stuff, 2, 3 years old. I'm still love car. And then, so it's very natural for me to go to the mechanical engineering department and try to getting in the engine lab. And my old friends, many of them are working in automobile companies. And actually that, with my very close friends, I have been playing with motorcycle stuff during my university food. And then I went to sort of internship in companies and watch all of the companies. And at the time, what I have been dreaming about is like a life as a Dr. Porsche, who wants to make world first car or something like that. But actually that I'm not good math, I'm not good exam, but I like, just disassemble, assemble, change something, such person. So when I tried to get job, my friend decided to go to company to design motorbike. And I decided to continue research related to engine, and then I came into the engine from the intake port to the combustion chamber, and then flame. So that's the reason. And then I think I was really attracted by the flame itself. So maybe that's why I'm here. And as Tony mentioned, that, and also Bob mentioned that person, attractive person, encounter the very wonderful people. I really want to raise the three persons, my mentor, my senior professor, and colleagues, two of the colleagues. And I mentioned that I worked in combustion under microgravity. The field is very simple because without buoyancy. Of course, it's natural for engineers to solve something mathematically. But when I make experiment, the math tells something, predicts something. If you model it very correctly, the flame really behaves as modeled. It's strange, but for me it's really shocked experience. Oh, flame follows the mathematical prediction. So that's fun, really fun. So maybe that's the answers that the Violi raised in the previous session. So human beings are attracted by fire itself, and also that it follows math. That's a shocking experience. That's why I'm here. I chose the academic life.
Well, I understand that, but to this group, what would you advise them to do in addition to the math, the engineering, the hands-on things? I'm thinking of, for example, one group told me that if you're not reading a novel 6 times a year, you should be. Do you have outside reading besides your engineering material? Do you have favorite book?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what is it?
Book. What am I read recently? It's difficult. Give me some time.
Okay, you will have another time, okay. Our next speaker?
Right, back to your first question, what's so different about a university and working in the industry? So let me introduce myself first. I'm Nouf Aburas. I graduated with a civil engineering degree, civil environmental engineering from Northeastern University. And I came back, worked for Aramco, worked for the Ministry of Petroleum. I worked for the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Came back, worked for Aramco again as an engineer and now as a technology strategist in 5 years. So in those 5 years, I met a lot of policymakers, economists, foremen in some rig in the middle of nowhere, or an engineer in a plant. What's different to me was in a university, we have some sort of a theme that we want to solve problems within a certain field. Now, in the industry, you will meet, it's much more interdisciplinary. You will need to be, as I said earlier, you need to be more adaptive. You need to wear different hats. So when you talk to a lawyer, it's totally different than talking to an economist. And that, to me, was the challenge. And I think without that, I think we can't move forward in the industry.
I totally agree with you. And to Professor Maruta, I was in graduate school. I think I went to the last university in the world that required, in America at least, a second language. And so I elected to study Japanese. And for that reason, I have a better understanding of culture in Japan. Again, I studied for 2 years Japanese, and I haven't used that a great deal. And that requirement has since been dropped. You don't have to have that language. And when I look back, had I to do over again, I would say I would be much better off and better prepared had I spent 2 years learning about business a degree we call in America called an MBA. I think that's a Master's in Business Administration, for precisely the reason you say, that time and time again, I'm not even understanding the conversation of how things make money. And after all, the purpose of a company is to make money for the shareholders. I've been reminded of that several times in my career, and I warn all of you that when you join a company, the company is there to make money for the shareholders, and you are there to help the company do that. So I totally resonate with your comment that increasingly you're speaking to business people. You are part of the business. You're also part of the legal profession. So you have to have much wider bandwidth than what we have taught you so far in the university. Speak some more. Any more comments?
Is there any questions?
Any questions at this time? We don't have to wait to the end. Here's a question out there, okay.
Hi, I got a question like, I think life's short. What if I want to experience more? Like when I'm going to be 40 and I get tired of research in the university, can I jump over some border to the industry? If the border exists, how can I jump over this kind of border? Any difficulties? Yeah, that's my question.
All right. Yeah. So I don't have so much experience in academia as you might have, but I think it's always possible. You can always change what you want to do, and being in the industry is very exciting. It's very thrilling because, in a sense, it's very diverse. And you need to cater for different departments, different organizations, either within your industry, within your company or outside your company. Within regulators, you need to discuss with regulators some issues. You need to discuss with engineers some other issues. So it's very thrilling to me. That's what I like about it. And yeah, it's always possible to move from one area to another. And also in the industry, for example, in Saudi Aramco, we have around 9 research organizations around the world. So you can still do research in an oil company, for example, or any other company around the world. And I'm sure other companies do invest a lot in research. So if you're not willing to take the big risk and going completely to be a business-oriented individual, you can always go through, take baby steps. So to research in an industry. And if you like it, if you don't, you can always move around.
Okay, thank you.
I think that to your question, and you're saying, can I jump in the mid-career to something else? I would say be careful. In effect, plan ahead and make sure that what you choose at each year in your career is consistent with what you like doing and your goals. And that if you have to make such a change, I want you to maybe change companies, but don't particularly change your whole repertoire of things. Because over the course of 5 and 10 years, you learn a great deal of things that you take for granted. If you were to jump into a new career, and let me say, here, I've been working in combustion for years, and somebody invites me to be the chief technical officer of a company that grows mushrooms. This is an exciting opportunity, I would say, at the first blush, but then I have to confess that I know nothing about biology and nothing about how to grow mushrooms. And it would take years for me to be up to speed with even a student that's had a 4-year college degree. It would simply be the wrong thing for me to do. So constantly, all of you, choose things that make you feel good and that you like doing, because even if you have to move your career around, you still probably want to carry that with you. Okay, you were about to say something, maybe? No, you. Yeah, your turn. Okay, carry on. From Taif, okay?
Okay, for me, I'm not part of the industry, so I believe I'm here to reflect on the other things I can do with combustion. Faisal Al-Malki, an associate professor at Taif University. I belong to the Department of Mathematics, so I'm a mathematician who came by chance to the world of combustion since I was working with Professor Joel Dow at the University of Manchester in 2006. Since there, I started working on the mathematical modeling and numerical simulation of chemical reactive flow problems. Later, I joined Taif University as an assistant professor and then as associate professor. I worked also as a dean of student affairs at Taif University, so that was a different experience for me, but it was very fruitful experience. And I believe in a very well-known saying here in Arabic. They say that at the university, you get lessons, and then later you get exams. But in life, you get exams, and then you get lessons. And that's the main thing. I always try to learn new things and take new initiatives and be part of something new projects, some projects related to my research work in the mathematical modeling and numerical simulation of triple flames, edge flames. Recently, I was started working on edge flames and other experiences related to my academic career at Taif University, because in Taif University, it is a very growing university. It was started in 2005. And if you work in a growing university, you need to have different skills in order to prove yourself at this place. So it was like a mixed experience between research, administrative work, and so on.
Is there any preparation that you would recommend to the students? Because you said of course, you were at Manchester, then you come, and now you're doing a lot of administrative things, you're grading students. What preparation or what things should you be thinking of to kind of prepare yourself for this transition?
Well, in academia, usually this preparation is very difficult to control, especially if you are working in a growing university like Taif University. Sometimes you will find the administrative work will take you completely from your work, and that happened for me for some time. And then you will find the teaching duties will take you from your research. So it is a matter of balance between what motivations do you have and what objectives do you need to arrive to. But there is no magic rule for that preparation.
Well, I'll give you an example, and I don't know what the situation is widely, but at Berkeley, when I started teaching in 1990, and I was 40 years old, I had 28 students in thermodynamics and 2 graduate student assistants. And when I left in 2014, I had 163 students, not 28, and I had 2 graduate student assistants, okay? And so I really had to rethink all the time that I've got to do this job differently. And let me add that each and all of us working for, whether you're working for a university or a corporation, you have to do things faster, better, cheaper. And so I learned that I had been giving quizzes that required people write out the answer and work the problem, and I had to sit and grade it, and grading such things took a long time. Just by sheer volume, I had to change my exams into A, B, C, D, and that way I could grade them in reasonable time. and you'd think, well, something was lost, and maybe so, but the evidence was not much. So I thought the students were learning equally well, and I learned to adapt, that I had to just give up doing handwritten exams and me individually grading them and looking for errors and mistakes. I had to tell people, you must find your own mistakes. You must learn to do this problem yourself, and here's the answer, and so on. Stuff like that. So I promise you, you will learn to adapt, and you have to adapt. More questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Dr. Dean. It's being in your position, I'm sure you've hired many people, you've screened many applicants, and I wonder first I'd like to know, through which channels do you find most of your successful hires come through? Do they apply on the web? Are they referred? Do you meet them at a workshop? And what qualities do you look for in an individual that you think will benefit your company?
That's a great question, Manny. I think, candidates come my way all different ways. There are people who apply through the web. I'd say that's one of the least successful ways. We have people who help us with recruiting, and they screen so that usually I don't see the 300 people that applied, but I get down to the 20 or 30 that are match our basic requirements. And so you lose maybe good people during that first screen. I personally have found that hiring is not a highly controlled process. And what I mean by that is if you have someone who does apply, you start with a resume, you maybe have a phone screen with them, then you have an interview for a day. That's a very superficial, interaction. And it's one that's incomplete for both parties. It's incomplete for the applicant because you try to put your best foot forward about the organization and about what they would do if they were to come. And likewise, they're trying to put their best foot forward. So in general, it's much better if there's a prior relationship, if they've come as an intern, if you've met them at a conference, seen them present. Events like this, where you get to see people in action. And then it's a much more natural process to say, yeah, we think there's a fit. Because in the end, a hiring decision is really about, is there a fit for the individual to come to the organization, and is there an organization for the organization to have that individual? So I'd say that's my basic comment about hiring, and then what do I look for? For me it's a combination probably of three things. There's a basic intellect that people need to have, especially if you're going to engage in research. And even industrial research, I'd say, has many challenges, as does academics. So there's a basic intellect that's needed. But almost more important than intellect is passion. The ability to just work. And it isn't necessarily about hours, but it is about finding the way to solve a problem effectively. And so having passion and creativity, curiosity to do that is so important. And then I think the other thing is just, and maybe it goes with that, is really commitment. And Bob said it well. When you come to an organization, you're really there to make it better. And I always say to people when they first come in, it's sort of about me. I want a paycheck. What are you going to do for me? But after a certain period of time, people transition to sort of we. It's about us. It's about how is our organization. They're part of the community, and then they're more interested in the community, and maybe they'll sacrifice time here and there. There's always work-life balance you have to manage. But moving from that me to we is a very important transition, and it happens more easily if there's a great fit at the very beginning. So those are some of the elements for me that are very important.
And yet, at the same time, you must work well with your company. We also, I'm encouraging you to join various societies, such as the Combustion Institute, which may or may not be explicitly supported by your company. They more or less wouldn't care. But I'd encourage you to go to Combustion Institute meetings, be a member of the Combustion Institute, and network with those people, because you will be drawing upon that friendship and that knowledge throughout the rest of your life. Next week, I will be in Detroit at an SAE meeting, and so I have lots of colleagues in the Society of Automotive Engineering, and it's great to be at that. And then let me add that at last, I also go to the ASME Internal Combustion Engine meeting. As it turns out, automobile engines are usually represented at SAE meetings, and stationary powerful engines and ship engines are usually at ASME meetings. And so that's why I end up going to both, a little bit on each, and I just keep my hand in it. And I've developed tremendous assets over the years of people whom I can pick up the telephone, now we use smartphone, and make a phone call and just ask an innocent question. And I can get a pretty straightforward answer right away. So I encourage you to not only work well for your company, but also join the societies. And of course, they have paper shuffling and things that has to be done. And in fact, of course, I'm working on SASCI, that is the Saudi Arabian section of the Combustion Institute, and our meeting is in Riyadh this coming May, so that's only like 3 weeks from now. And I'm now a papers chairman, and I'm working on that, and it's a pleasure to do that, and I do that. It's completely independent of my job. Other questions? Please.
Well, actually, I want to add one point. I noticed it during my interaction with my colleagues here. I noticed that especially for people who used to study at places like KAUST or KFUPM, where you get free advanced labs and up-to-date technology, some of them, when they go to other universities, they don't have these capabilities or the lab capabilities they used to have at KAUST, for example, and they feel a bit depressed. I told them this is part of the game. You have to prove yourself first, and then if you prove yourself and you work with a group and you work with a community that share your research ideas, I believe that the university will listen to your demands, and they will offer you and give you what you need. But don't expect these things to happen overnight. You have to be patient, and you have to be to prove yourself. And also you can have different routes or techniques. For example, if you happen to work in experiments, you can think to do computation. If you used to do computation with commercial software, you can do it with open source software. And also you can do modeling. So there are many parts of the game you need to master in order to prove yourself.
There are many parts to the game that you have to learn, and that's one of the things you'll discover. And I can't think of a single book to recommend, and I'm going to ask anybody here, is you're going to learn what we call office politics. And you'll have to learn it sooner or later. And I wish I could recommend a fun reading book, but I don't have any. But let me, before I ask my colleagues here about such recommendations, it's been very useful to have one sentence sort of reminders for the students, and that is, I tell students that every talk you give is a job interview. You don't know it, but when you're standing up and presenting in front of an audience, people are watching you and deciding, is this somebody that we want to hire at our company? Or if you're even in your own company, you're making an impression on many people, and they will decide then whether you're the person that they want to promote when a position appears sometime later. So every talk is a job interview, and a corollary of that is everything you write is your resume. So every paper, take care. And you might get a little bit disappointed and think that very few people will read my paper. And that's true. However, the people who do read your paper are the most important people to you. So you must do good work on writing that paper. Make sure everything's clear. Take the time. Make time. Make good presentations. Make good papers. Every presentation is a job interview. Every written word is your resume. Take that away from me today. Other comments? Question?
I have a comment back to Saskia. I'll just go back to that Saskia comment. It's a great opportunity for anybody who's interested to attend the Saudi Arabian section of Combustion Institute 8th Annual event. It will be in Kabsark, King Abdullah Petroleum Research and Study Center at Riyadh. So if you are guys interested to attend, just let me know to send you the link of the registration. Thank you.
See you there, okay? Frank? Frank's got his hand up.
Sorry. So I have two questions for Dr. Dean. So when you try to grow or manage, your team, what's the biggest mistake you have ever made in your career? And the second question is that I know that GE stock price right now is going down a lot, and from the from your side, because you are like CTO, most like a CTO, and how do you respond to your stakeholders?
So I think probably my own team would probably be a better judge of my worst mistakes. I got to say that probably the most important thing for me is to always remember to learn how to listen. I'm sort of a person of action, and it's really important to listen and to bring people along with you. So I think that for me is one of the things I always have to remember is has everybody had input. Just to comment, companies go through changes and have ups and downs, and first of all, to have a company exist for over 125 years is pretty impressive. There's very few companies that are in that situation. What I'm proud of for GE is our technology stack. That is, the technical prowess of the products. In the markets we choose to be in, we have outstanding engineers who have made outstanding products. And we've got fantastic product leaders who help us shape and define what those products are. I think we're in a time, just to be brief, we've transformed a company that was industrial. It became very financial, more than 50% financial, and that wasn't so good in 2008. It decided to return to its industrial roots, and it has, and it doesn't have that financial cushion that it enjoyed when it had that financial business. So I think it's the right thing for the company. It's much more industrially focused. It's a high-tech infrastructure company, very focused in, frankly, broad but focused areas: energy, transportation, healthcare, important areas for the world. But it is a transformation. You always have to sort of have creative destruction in order to be ready for the next 100 years. Bob asked about books, so I do want to mention, there's different books you read depending. I do try to read books, and relevant ones I'll just mention here. Joining GE, when I was there, Jack Welch was running the company, and he had a book, Straight from the Gut. Jack was nothing if not a charismatic leader, and quite controversial in his time. And he took actions he thought were the right ones to move the company forward at that time. And I think that's interesting just to say someone who takes initiative. You can debate right or wrong, but no lack of initiative. Other books, I think if you want to do better, the sort of self-help business books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You know, you can read the Reader's Digest version. These aren't deep books, but they do have critical points. And then in today's world, I just throw out another title, which is Who Moved My Cheese? Which is very timely because the idea is if you prepare
I want
yourself,
that book. Okay.
if you prepare yourself academically in one narrow area and then the world maybe doesn't want it, what I've learned is that areas run hot and cold. And you may think you're off in a corner and all of a sudden that topic heats up. Conversely, you may go into a field saying, that's super hot, I want to be in the middle of it. And then over time, it seems to be less important. So it's all about picking your passion. And whether it feels important or not, sort of in the outside world, if you're passionate, it doesn't matter. And if you're passionate, you're going to move that field forward. And it'll probably have its day in the sun. It just not, you know, the sunny day might not be when you think it's going to be, but it probably will happen. So those are some books that you may want to think about. Have you had time to think about books?
So the book?
Whatever you'd like.
Okay. Okay, then let me just raise one point that how happy to be the academic person is the freedom. That is because that if, of course, depends on you, but your personality preference, but you're totally free to choose your research topic. I think this is one of the biggest advantage and happiness of being the academic person. One example is that last year I attended the meeting in Moscow, in very famous, very old physics institute. And the conference name is the Ginsberg Conference. And then they have very specific way of the organization in session. And not like, oh, you are from combustion, you're from energy. Just the organizers are trying to look at the form of the governing equations. And then we, actually that combustion guy, we were put into the one session together with the persons who's working on the medical stuff, particularly the tumor growth. The reason is that flame propagation and tumor growth, the governing equations are very similar. It was really fantastic. And maybe that's their strength. So like that, we can switch one to another. Yesterday, I talked with the Mani about the research topic. And we combustion people are very familiar with, you know, transport and reaction. And except nuclear reaction, we can deal anything we want. So we can move to, if you want, fuel cell, and also Mani said that neuron stuff. So I think combustion is really at the really good cross-section for every scientific areas, of course, and engineering areas. So feel free to do anything you like. You have already some expertise. That's what I want to say. Regarding the book, most of the time I'm reading the Japanese book, so it's a bit difficult. But I remembered maybe 10 years back, I read one book translated into Japanese. With the title is, I think it's New Earth, authored by the Eckhart Tolle. When you have a hard time, I think I recommend you to read that book. I was saved, really saved. Mainly that book is about the recognition. The difficulty that you have in mind is mostly triggered from your recognition. That's what the book. So if you change your recognition, then you can change your mind and then everything. That's sort of that.
New Earth.
New Earth, I believe,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. You're writing that down, correct? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? I see one out there. I might add, we had a play come to KAUST recently, and it was much advertised. And the play, I decided I'm going to the play, but I Googled the play, and it was quite interesting Google to read about the play, and that made me actually enjoy the play so much more because I'd read more of the background of how this book was written. And I learned in this Google that this was a British play, and it said it is number 60 in the 100 best British books, or novels, let me say. So I laughed. There must be a website of the 100 best British novels, and I Googled that, and there is. Okay, and so then I said, well, there must be a similar website for the 100 best American novels, and there is. And, you know, if nothing else, I encourage you to just look at such analogous websites in other languages, if you do, and ask yourself, try to read off that list. And I was advised to be reading 6 novels a year. Also, one of my one-sentence useful things for you is all of us are, I think, well, most of us are very poor writers. It comes with our engineering, and we like doing things with our hands, and we don't train ourselves well enough with writing. But the good news is, and it worked for me, and they said, if you want to be a better writer, then become a better reader. And they said by reading novels and watching how they deal with words, you will become better yourself. I think that's true. Now, what's your question?
Sure. So you raised the point of how research is different from academia and industry. Do you think it's easy to go from academia to industry in terms of research, or the other way around? All of you.
Okay.
Anyone.
My answer is yes. Your answer?
You know, I think it's possible to go back and forth. I've seen great examples. And I like the comment earlier, you know, if you're in academics and you're thinking about industry, companies have research centers. I've spent most of my career at a research center at GE. I have spent time at business divisions as well. And it is a safe spot if your heart's academic. I think the main thing about moving around is you've got to think about the time scale of the problem to solve, and you've got to think about the pace. So in industry, I think we heard that the time scales are short. There's a problem to solve tomorrow. There's a piece of equipment that's not working, or there's a permit for regulations that has a deadline. So what's good about sort of industry is there's rapid feedback. And if you like the hit that you're getting from accomplishing things, the pace is fast and you accomplish lots of I'll say, things, and they add up to big things, but each one might be small. I think in academics, you've got to pick the right problem to solve. You don't want to be repeating maybe what industry would do. You've got to pick longer time scale problems and then work at the appropriate pace to move those forward as well. So to me, you can go back and forth, but it is that adaptability of think about the problem you're solving and the pace you need to work to achieve that.
May I add to that also, if you work in academia, sometimes there are some research funds that are provided by companies that are in the industry. So these research funds will be a great idea for any academician who want to try the real-life problems and want to interact with industry. So I recommend for anyone who is interested in working in academia and is interested in knowing more about the real-life problems and the atmosphere at this level to try to apply for these research projects. There was some research projects by Saudi Aramco and by SABIC. I'm not sure if it is still there or not, but I know some people from my university, they were applying for these funds. So this may be something good to try.
Thank you very much for your insights about this topic. And my question is related to her question. It's about what do you think a PhD researcher can add to the industry? What is the difference of having a PhD engineer compared to an engineer without PhD? Does the industry value PhDs? What's your opinion about that?
Okay, let me answer you because I'm not a PhD holder.
Okay.
So what usually happens in our meetings, as in my experience, so what usually happens is that they always know better. They always know the details, that you're always looking at it from a business perspective, you're always looking at it from a holistic level, from a higher level, but you sometimes miss the details. And I really like working with PhD holders. Actually, I'm the only one in my team that doesn't have a PhD. And I really like it because it's very thrilling. They always know better, and you always learn from them, from my side. And to them, they have this sort of, I always go to them for advice because they know these details. So for me, as a non-PhD holder, it's a great advantage. For them, they know the details that an average person wouldn't be able to recognize, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, my experience, people are smart from many walks of life, so it isn't about intelligence. But for people who take time to get a PhD have made a commitment, and they've typically been surrounded by smart people, their own research team, their advisor, and they've solved a problem. And that does give you attention to details. It also gives you confidence. You can go somewhere and you know you've solved a hard problem, and you probably know more about one area than anybody else in the world, at least at the time that you finish your thesis. And that's this tremendous depth that if you're lucky enough to find a position that needs that, that's great. Even if you don't, you've now learned the skills. You've got a toolbox of taking what you did over that 3 or 5 years, and you can apply those skills and tools to almost any situation. So I think, for folks with a PhD, it's just a great way to grow your toolbox. It also gets you connected to a network. For me, whether it's academics or industry, at the end of the day, it's about people. And I always like to find other smart people. In fact, I want to be around people smarter than me because they challenge me, they make me better. And so, sometimes if you get a PhD, people might think, oh, you're the smartest person in the room. And you got to put yourself in a place where actually you're challenged for the next step, because you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You don't keep growing if you're the smartest person in the room. But I think getting a PhD is very valuable. If you're on the edge of making a decision, say you have a master's and you're debating, it is a personal choice and it is a financial decision in some cases, but it's a great choice to make for many people.
Please.
So I want to add one thing. Regardless of the PhD research topic is lasting or not, it's sort of a training to tackle with one problem with enough time and depth. Usually, Tony mentioned that the industry requirements is speed. It is very important, exciting. You need different expertise, switch one to another. But you have one deep line here. And then also that you need something like very broad, maybe shallower but broad knowledge. And then if you have like network, or even, for example, you play some tennis or whatever, you have some very deeper insights into one thing, right? And then if you have one or more like deep things, maybe whatever, cooking, okay, research, then definitely you will see some analogy between two. And you can utilize such, very stimulative interaction between two deep. So having first depth getting a PhD is, I think it's really, really valuable experience.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think with that, we've had a great time up here. I want to add one last thing, is that the reason I got a PhD was I really didn't want a job. And students years later said, "Congratulations, professor, you've accomplished that goal your entire life." I thank my guest here for this. I thought was a very, very valuable exchange for everybody. So please help me.